morning and welcome to the Foster Swift Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dave Russell. I'm joined alongside of my two co-hosts, Charlie Sarche and Tony Delamonte. Today we are joined with my dear friend, Coach Terry Samuel. Coach Samuel, he used to be here at Michigan State for, 9 years? He coached at Michigan State as a wide receivers coach. He is now at the University of Kansas. He's the wide receivers coach there. He's had a number of stops in between. He was at Syracuse, UNLV. He actually played his college football at Purdue, played a little pro after that, I believe. And we're really excited to talk to you today, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And that little bit of pro is just, trying to get a sniff in the CFL, man. So I don't know if y'all can say that.
That counts,
yeah,
absolutely.
That counts, absolutely. So, Coach, I think you know this. We talk a lot about recruiting on this podcast, and you're one of the best college recruiters in the country. What have you seen over the last 5 years? The changes in the college recruiting landscape.
The biggest thing is the fact when players are getting paid. In the beginning with families, they're looking about how they're going to get paid. Whereas, when I started in 97, it was more about the scholarship, the mentoring, development, things of that nature. And right now with the NIL piece, you're jumping, that jumped a lot of components. That jumped to the number one priority for a lot of people. And, trying to navigate that's been kind of the biggest thing in recruiting, is still trying to make the connection for players, family members, that the development piece, the scholarship piece, it's still important. But these players need to get paid, and they need to be able to get whatever they need to maximize their opportunities. So balancing that off is probably the biggest issue that we're faced right now in recruiting.
And how do you guys balance that? So I guess how's the approach changed from when you were talking about those things like scholarships and the campus and mentorship? Is it the conversations? What's the strategy that goes into that?
The biggest thing, I still believe it's the relationship piece. A parent, as a recruiter, a parent needs to feel that I truly have their best interests. And I find the best way for me to show that I have their best interests is trying to gain their trust. I state and every time I talk to recruits and I talk to parents, I try to express that I'm trying to earn your trust. I'm going to develop your son. I'm going to be a part of his life. I'm gonna stalk his Instagram. I'm gonna see when he gets married. I want to be a part of those moments, those great moments that the player is going to have after football. So when you're trying to create a relationship, and you want parents to see you be transparent. I want the players to see my wife, my kids, and I'm just a regular guy. And I think that's probably the best thing that I've been able to do with balancing things in this day and age of recruiting is try to be me. Don't try to be something I'm not, but make sure you're keeping the players first in their development and mental health, being accessible to those guys as they're going through this journey.
Coach, when you're recruiting a player and maybe they take a visit and they're talking with you and talking with your Rev Share staff, and you're getting the vibe that maybe the player and the family, what they care about most is the money. Does that turn you off as a recruiter? Does that make you not as willing to give them an offer?
Well, because there's other components to that. If you're saying I'm only concerned with the money and I'm coming in and I'm expecting to start, the thing that truly, the money doesn't affect me as much, because once you get the player in, you're dealing with a skill set. The question becomes is are there expectations? Are they saying, I'm coming into your university and I'm expecting to start? That affects me more in a day-to-day than per se how much they're being paid. Now, the part where I think we do a good job is I don't care to know how much a guy is getting paid. I want to be able to coach the guys in my room, and I want to know exactly that I'm playing the best guys. And as I go into families' home, I let families know, I don't want to know what you're going to get paid, what you're going to talk in rev share. I don't need to know that. I need to be able to develop the guys in that room. The best guys should play. I think that's been a really good model. That's something transparently that we truly believe that, okay, whatever you do on the front end, and however that negotiation goes, all right, that's good. But once we get into that room, then it truly needs to be the best people play, the best player plays. And I think that model has worked for us in regards to getting the most out of our players and being upfront and honest with and transparent with parents that, all right, that part's out of the way. Now we need to go get on the field and we need to go push it and develop ourselves and, making the right choices on the football field and making plays for the team so we win.
Coach, when looking at a recruiter, I guess in your experience with recruits and, putting talent aside, if it's all equal, what have you seen from recruits? Like what are the best recruits doing?
Well, nowadays, these guys are getting trained. And so much so that even when we have players that are with us currently, there's wide receiver trainers that, that are going to give guys work and going to suggest this and suggest that. They're constantly working on their craft. And, as a wide receiver coach this day and age, I'm still trying to pinpoint what is important to our program and what we're doing. So you have to navigate that part nowadays. But when I played, I don't know if I would have been able to play in this generation. These guys are just trained to such a degree that they're way developed. I think these kids nowadays are faster. I think they're bigger. I think they're stronger. I think the game is a lot better. So you're dealing with a better athlete in my estimation. But the biggest thing, like I said, I think the play component is where it's lacking. I don't know if 7-on-7 is, that's not real football to me in regards to playing wide receiver. I think, playing football is the best thing that these kids can be doing. And, like I said, nothing ever takes the place of running a route. Nothing ever takes the place of playing 11 on 11. So, and learning how to tackle, learning how to avoid being tackled. So those things to me are where the game's got to continue to grow. But like I said, I think these guys athletically are much better than what we were in the past.
Coach, what separates a good receiver from someone, who's truly elite or has sort of separated themselves? Is it athletics? Is it sort of knowledge of the game? What are your thoughts there?
That's a simple answer. It's what's in between the ears, man. Like I said, these guys are fast. They're big. Athletically, they can do a lot of different things. But my elite players that I've had, the guys that's played in the league, the Tony Lippett's, the Felton Davises and Cody Whites. Those guys, shoot. We got Luke Grimm, who's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever coached. These guys are really highly intelligent, but what's in between their ears and how they apply it. I always tell my guys, I have a lot of information. I've forgotten a lot of information in regards to playing wide receiver, but these guys, like I said, the stuff that I have, that if they can apply it, they have a chance to play at the next level, so when I'm recruiting a player, can he pull information that applies to him so he can apply it on the field? Does he make that concept real to him in his mind that he can apply it on the field? If you deal with a player that's just, I'm athletically gifted and they're not interested in developing their football IQ, their wide receiver IQ, it's not going to show up. They're going to be a tad late in decisions. So the thing that separates great wide receivers is the football IQ, the wide receiver IQ, and how fast they can apply it, make a play, and get yards after the catch. So give me the guy that's got great speed, great size, and all that catching ability, but give me the guy that has a great football IQ, a wide receiver junkie, guy that wants to talk about wide receiver play all the time. That guy, he's going to end up doing pretty well at the college level.
Coach, you mentioned that players, or at least high school players these days, are getting bigger, stronger, faster. When you're recruiting a player, how important to you are, their physical characteristics, their measurables? Like, are you looking at a player and saying, all right, this guy is over 6'2", I'll keep looking at him. If he's, under 6 foot, are you like, nah, not right now, maybe down the line for us? Or like, how big is that in your recruiting process?
It has to be big. I mean, there's different criteria. There's different groups that I use for wide receivers. I mean, if I have a big size guy, 6'3" plus, I call him a monster. I mean, and a monster has different skill sets. The 50-50 ball, the ability to be very dominant in blocking. Then you have a speed guy. I mean, he could be smaller, but his speed relates into the track. Track times. And if he's really got good track times and he's smaller, okay, fine. But you can be in that 6 foot, you can be in the 5'10", you can be 5'8". But if your speed is different, you can play at this level. Then you have the guys that's in between, and those are kind of the point guard type wide receivers, just crafty, great football IQ, really good ball skills. What you do from all three of those categories, I'm looking at my roster and seeing what's in that wide receiver room and trying to decide, okay, what do we need more of? If I have a bunch of monsters, so to speak, then, I probably need to go get a couple of speed guys. You can win championships with guys in the middle, those baller type guys. You can win championships easily, and you don't need a lot of speed guys. You need guys that can take the top off, but you're always going to need a 50-50 guy because the game has gotten to the point of being very physical. DBs are very skilled. The zone component is not as big as much as, a wide receiver coach is, you kind of decide how good a wide receiver coach is on how well a guy can get off press and how well a guy can separate at the top part of his route. So when those guys can do that, and 50-50 guys, monster type guys should be able to move DBs around. So for me, I think the biggest thing with these type of categories, as I look at what I have, I just have to make sure that I'm having variety, so to speak, in my wide receiver room.
Terry, I know you look at a lot of film, and I send you film on occasion to look at, and I always find it impressive that you can really look at film quick, break it down, and make a determination. What is it when someone sends you film, when a recruit sends you film, or you're just looking at film that stands out to you, where you're like, wow, this kid has it? Yeah.
Well, anytime you watch film, those first 3 plays, they should be different. If you're not different in those first 3 plays, what are we talking about? If I got to look through 12, 15 plays, at the high school level, a player should be different. You should be the best player on the field. You should Derrick Henry, versus kindergartners when you're on the field. That's kind of the mentality when you look at, if you're not playing different, then, okay, we're talking speed. If your speed's not different, then you're not a speed guy. If your size and your mentality, your physicalness is not different, then what are we talking about? So it really makes that part, sorting it out, fairly easy. The biggest trick for me as a wide receiver coach is when I watch film, it's hard to judge how good a guy's ball skills. And when you think about it, it's fairly simple. The film is so far away. How can I see how a guy is catching a ball? Is he double catching it? Is he smooth? Does he reach out and really grab it? And, or is he palms up and catching the ball and body catching? It's kind of hard to see some things because of the way the film is. So I put a lot of stock into being able to see wideouts catch the ball live.
It's much better than it used to be, though, right? We had Alan True on for 24/7. I guess he's now with Rivals, but he was talking about it. It used to be where you had to pop in the VHS tape, and now
they started game 1.
Yeah, that's right. But now with Huddle and all of that, I mean, it has made that a little bit easier. And I think his thought was there's less misses because of that.
100%. I mean, yeah. I mean, you don't have have to watch 30 games and you can watch a highlight, but therein lies the rub too, guys. I mean, here's a thing that's starting to be an issue. There's players that are using AI, all right, to create these highlights.
It's crazy.
That's
Make
not
them a little
good.
faster.
Make them a little faster. I always could tell if I see, when I'm watching film and I see a referee that look like he's 4'2",
7 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if his stomach is hanging over his belt and he's 4'2" on the film, there's something wrong with his film. So you can generally, there's some telltales in regards to film being kind of doctored or sped up. But when they start saying using AI, I mean, that's a whole different component to this game. And yeah, going back and watching film. Because, I mean, like Coach Antonio used to always talk about, you want to be able to watch film and be able to see what he's like on the sideline when the ball's not coming to him and things of that nature. So you get the overall picture and feel of what you're getting into your program. But the highlights give us the athletic ability. But when you watch a true game, you're legitimately trying to say, okay, character. What are you dealing with character-wise? Now, there's the problem, everything's sped up nowadays, and, a lot of coaches don't get a chance to do that. But I do see that that's some of what's happening with the recruiting departments now. Some of the recruiting departments may start to look more at some of the game film, and truly watch what character they can derive from it.
Interesting. Are there any current NFL players that you watch film or, maybe in the off season when you're working on individual drills that you try to show your guys and you're like, this is what it looks like when it's done right?
I watch it all the time. I mean, I sit in my group chat with the wide receivers, and that's the thing that's kind of the different thing from way back in the day. I could send an Instagram clip of Devontae Adams, who is one of the guys that I love watching and technique wise, from press release to separation and things of that nature. His top of the route stuff is really, really, really good. So, I like to put those little Instagram clips in the group chat. So it's teaching without having them in the classroom. Those are great deals for me. And but like I say, Devontae is, when you ask me who do I use, he is the guy that, like I said, if I ever get a chance to get his practice tapes, I mean, I'd be giddy beyond belief. But and just simply to answer that, yes, I do use NFL. I do. There's so many different techniques, and when you start talking about the monster types, the taller, physical, when I can show that to some of my wideouts who have those same type of skill sets, or they need to develop those types of skill sets, I send those to them. I mean, and if I got a speed guy, I mean, Mr. Hill, I mean, that's great. I mean, I can send it to my wideouts who I think he's a speed guy. Yeah. So you want to try to use as much information, and, you're trying to get these young men to see technique and understand technique is important. So by any means necessary in that regard.
Hey, Coach, how much are you recruiting, outside of your current region? And with some of the high school guys that I've talked to, we've seen that, some schools that are further away from Michigan, where these guys aren't really willing to look at them yet or at all, because they more just recruit in state or in the states surrounding their state. Is that different for you? Like maybe if you have some roots in Michigan, you're more willing to look at guys from Michigan, or how does that impact your recruiting decisions?
Well, I mean, if I get a call from a high school coach in Michigan, and I do get a lot of those calls from Detroit and guys send me guys, and I make sure I pass them on. It's not my area. We have another coach that is in that area now. So I have another area, but anytime there's crossover and coaches know coaches, you have to utilize those, those avenues, because they can, I've had some really good coaches in Detroit that have helped me a great deal with identifying talent I trust those individuals. So it makes it easier for me to stand on the table for a kid from Michigan, even though I'm not recruiting the area, to make sure that that kid gets looked at by our staff. And like I said, we have no problem, going to different areas to recruit. But you do want that connection because, like I said, if you're going and you're just recruiting Utah and you have no connections to Utah, you're going to miss some parts of the character. What are you truly going to get with this kid when he gets into your program? That can be an issue. And the relationships that I've had with coaches in Michigan, in Texas, and things of that nature, it's just been able to where I can kind of cut through some of that and feel comfortable. The stand on the table component is more readily for me when I know the coach and he can express that, okay, this guy's like Tony Lippett. This guy's like Luke Grimm. This guy's like Quentin Skinner. When I can make that relation, then it's easier for me to stand on the table and get the guy into the program.
Terry, how much of your recruiting is coming from the portal?
Well, I mean, it's a need base. And that's where I think a lot of people don't quite understand. It's not that, staffs are just saying, I'm just going to go into the portal. It is the answer, the football IQ, the guy that has experience can be in the portal. It's hard to develop a high school player who has not played the game to get him ready to play at a college level versus 22, 23-year-olds. Those guys are seasoned ready. I think about a freshman wide receiver going up against a 23-year-old. I mean, a guy that's seasoned. That part is he's going to take some lumps. And you have to be willing. Athletically, if he can do it, great. Okay, and that's where some of everybody want to say the 4-star and the 5-star. Athletically, they can do it. The 3-star may have to develop. The 2-star will have to develop. The 1-star, we don't even know. So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, let me go and see if we can address the issue. Okay, now you try to get it in high school. We firmly believe in trying to get the high school player first. That's not even an issue on our staff. We try to get the high school player. But once we get into a situation where, how those players that are on your roster, are they developing the way they need to? Can they help you win a game versus Texas Tech, versus, Arizona State? If they're not ready, then you have to go just to know that you have to win games. So let's not minimize that we have to win games to keep our jobs. So we need to make sure that we get an answer at that offensive tackle position, defensive tackle position, linebacker. You have to get an answer to go into a season ready to play. So people are, they're all over on this concept as far as I'm concerned. The bottom line is if you're going into the portal, you have an issue that you need to be addressed. And hopefully the answer in the portal shows itself. But we all know that, what's in the portal could easily be another headache. There's a reason why a kid would leave another university. If everything was great, less likely for them to leave. Don't get me wrong. The money component and the NIL and all that and, people tampering with things, that's goes without saying. But, you have these, players that if they're leaving a place and they're unhappy with a place, that could be a negative because, like I said, you don't know what you're really getting.
Coach, I had a question with regard to 7-on-7. Sometimes I'll see clips of like 1-on-1s or 7-on-7 where it looks like the receiver takes about 7 seconds to get off and they make 9 moves at the line. Is that something you've seen, with the rise of 7-on-7 where you're like, hold on, you have half a second to get off. He's going to be sacked by the time you make these 8 moves.
You're 120% correct on this. As a wide receiver coach, this is why I don't like 7-on-7. I don't like seeing just 1-on-1s. The age-old question is when you ask a wide receiver, who are you trying to beat, the D-line or the cornerback? The moment he tells me a cornerback, I was like, hey, bro, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. Okay. as a wide receiver, our job is to beat the D line. If the quarterback is laying on his back, we don't get the ball.
Yep.
So you have to, when you start to watch 7-on-7, yeah, I can see ball skips. Yeah, I can see if he's got some speed. I can see if there's some change of direction. I'm assessing talent, okay? But I'm not assessing technique. There's that component where, if you, I've gotten to the point where I don't use the term foot fire, and that's the technique that old wide receivers used to talk about when they just chop their feet and then just wait for the DB to make a decision and then you go after the fact. Everything that I teach is about attack. And, so we're going to make people uncomfortable in regards to playing wide receiver position and be physical. So that whole adage of, we're beating the D line. We're going to make sure we get down the field and get to the top part of our route and be available to the quarterback.
Coach, can you walk for our young athletes and their parents, walk through kind of the timeline? When are you starting to look at players? When are you making offers? At what stage are they able to come for an official visit? At what point would they meet with the general manager and talk about revenue share, signing day? Can you just kind of walk through the timeline and try to simplify that to those athletes and their parents?
Well, and here's what I try to express to parents. If you're better than what I have in my wide receiver room, why would I not pull the trigger? Athletically, like I said, if Derrick Henry was playing like he did at Alabama, as a freshman, why not offer that freshman? The question becomes for us is, okay, do I want to get in line or do I want to be first in line? Okay. Does the player have a connection to us? And those are the things that kind of, all right, should we offer a kid now? Or should we wait? Or are we already out of it? Okay. So, when you start looking at freshmen, I mean, it's hard for freshmen to get offered, but there have been freshmen that have just been that much different on the football field. I always say your sophomore year, you really should have a really good, strong year playing at the varsity level. So I should see, I'm used to seeing sophomores play at the varsity level. Okay. If a sophomore's playing and he's doing well and he's starting to look different, great. Speed is different, ball skills are different. Or from side to side as a linebacker, is he playing? Is he nasty? Does he hit? Does he track things down? Does he play with great effort? Your effort is going to help us make a decision on the defensive side, okay, and on the offensive side. If you're playing with great effort and great nasty, as a sophomore, now you're in a position where you start to, if your, size and, skill and, your weight, if that's there, then I can see, players being offered as sophomores. Juniors, you should be in that position to where you're playing to where you're different and you're getting offers. Like I said, for the freshman year, it's just try to establish yourself. If you're playing as a freshman on the varsity squad, I mean, you're probably doing pretty good. You're probably setting yourself up to be offered, but it's hard. It's hard to stand out as a freshman unless you're just really, really, really talented. But that's kind of my thought process. Now, as far as coming in and talking about NIL and things of that nature, you really try to hold that off until if a kid's going to say, okay, now we're in our these are our top 10 schools or top 5 schools. That's when I think the NIL conversation starts to be a little bit more legitimate. And it's hard to talk to NIL with a kid that's a sophomore. You really want to get into the, right before he's starting to make the decision is when those conversations start to happen. And then you say, okay, well, this is what we can do for you if you come play, at A-B school. I think it's, now, don't get me wrong. I know there's, universities and handlers that get numbers, for prospects and things of that nature. They're willing to play this. They're willing to pay that. But I really think that, for most players, as they start to narrow down what schools they're looking at, then that NIL conversation starts to happen a little bit more.
Coach, do you have any advice for up and coming wide receivers, whether they're freshmen or juniors, to try to get on a coach like yours radar, whether that's through the use of like social media, or who they should be working out with as a trainer, or what they should be doing just to try to get their name out there a little more?
Well, I mean, I see that, and this is where a lot of, prospects, they lose perspective. Camps are the best way to be seen. Like I said before, the highlight tapes and things of that nature for me, when I can't see ball skills, I can't see hand-eye coordination, or, that ability to be quick and things of that nature. How fast are you off the line of scrimmage? Those, when I can actually see it, that makes a difference to me. They have jamborees and things of that nature. I know Detroit used to do, where they used to have, several different, practices, so to speak, and you go from one school to another school in a certain period of time. And those things, when you can see players live, and what happens in those, you can see a freshman move around. You can see a sophomore move around. You can actually say, all right, I saw with my eyes this player move around, and he can be pretty good. You can have an evaluation. Those opportunities, if schools are providing those types of opportunities, those are huge. Those are huge because it solidifies it in our head. You can video it, you can see it. All right, I saw this kid. I know this kid's going to be pretty good once he gets to the college level. He can play at the Power 4 or G5 level. So I think for any young player to be seen, to be noticed, those types of things, you either come into a camp, or there's the jamborees that are happening, or like I said, sound mind, sound body used to be big. I mean, but being seen and working out, when you really want to solidify, if you're hungry, you need to be seen. You need to be seen by the coach. The dominoes start to fall, and this is where people are missing it. The 40 is great. Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to talk about you need to run the 40. Okay, all right, but you need to do something. You may debate whether or not you run the 40. And I understand. If you run a track, if I'm a track athlete, if I'm a wide receiver, and you run track, okay, I'm not going to be worried about your 40 so much if I already know you have track times. But if you don't have track times, and you don't run a 40, and so your speed is in question, then what are we talking about? Okay. So, somewhere along the line, I think players need to, number one, for wide receivers, you run track or be able to run the 40, but you definitely need to be seen, all right, at a camp. I know, schools, I know TCU, SMU, when you go down to Dallas, they have these mega camps and kids get seen. Now, there's so many kids there. It's so hard to see everything. But, what I'm saying, you stand out, your speed is really good, exceptional, and you're going to stand out, okay? And people are going to talk to you. So for young wide receivers, be seen, get to a camp, and let that wide receiver coach work with you. Let them work with you. I can't express that enough because, the last couple of years, a lot of our wideouts that we've taken, they come to camp and they worked out, and they may not be the highest recruited kid, but the kids showed out exceptionally well in our camps. And we'll offer, and then the pressure is going to be on you to take the scholarship.
Coach, what does your life look like right now? We're a couple months after the season. I don't think spring ball has started yet. So what are you doing to, get ready for spring ball, recruiting wise? What's your life look like?
My life doesn't, and right now, because the way things are, there isn't much. The recruiting is constant. There's always going to be trying to build relationships with players. There's always that component. There's always build a relationship with the parents. So you can't get out of rhythm. That's like catching the ball. You can't get out of rhythm with catching the ball. You can't get out of rhythm with recruiting players that you want in your program. So my wife is probably tired of me seeing you with my right hand with my cell phone in it. So I always got my cell phone in my hand. So, but trying to touch base with guys and make sure that they feel comfortable about Kansas and what we do and how we're going to treat them and take care of them. That's what I have to do. But as far as, the other parts of it is, we have our meetings, we're talking to players. We're trying to make sure that, as we get ready to go into spring ball, these guys are ready to maximize the opportunity. So, there's the weightlifting and there's, all the little team techs that we do get the chance to do and try to get guys prepared and ready for spring ball, and then, like I said, you try to mirror that up with what you have spring break. So right now, we have spring break. Our spring break is this week, and then we get started next week, truly, with our spring ball practices. And, feel really good, but, those 15 practices, you got to maximize, you got to hustle. I mean, you got to try to get the most of it. So for me right now, I'm going to be looking at some plays. I'm going to be looking at some things that we're doing technique-wise, wide receiver-wise, and, try to make sure that by the time I get myself back on Monday, that I'm already have a good plan of how each of my players, what I'm expecting from them. And we call them 1% goals and things of that nature, what I want to see from them in practice, the first practice, what I want to see, what I'm hoping to see offensively as a whole, So we're just trying to get ourselves ready to go and maximize these practices. But, after practice one, you got to reevaluate and try to make things a little bit better. So there's always that. I see something that happens, I react to something that happens, I change what I see, and hopefully I'm changing the things that need to be changed to make us a better team.
Coach, you agreed to come on on one of your rare trips away on spring break here. I know that you're not in Kansas right now, and I appreciate you coming on. But so we don't want to keep you too long. But I do want to ask about Kory Amachree coming out there to play at Kansas. Obviously, you and I, we're very close with Kory and his family, and I just want to hear from you, how that is, and that has to be special to have him out there.
Like I said, Kory is, like I said, being able to see him from a very, very young age and see what he's turning into. There's a lot of pride there, a lot of pride, and a lot of, happiness that I have that connection and that bond. It makes things special. It really makes things special that I can look at him and knowing where he started from in his journey, and how driven he was as a youngster, a toddler. So he's doing really well. I think ball skills, he's really got good ball skills. He's really got good speed. He's really got good strength. Like I said, it's what's going to happen in between his ears. I think he's developing a really good relationship with our running back coach, Coach Wallace. And, I think, as we move forward, it's just on how he applies the techniques and the concepts. It's not his athletic ability. It's not his athletic ability at all. Karen and Opu did an amazing job genetically making that child because he's amazing. Also, I just want to, like I said, it's when the lights come on, I always tell players that, hey, right now you're a freshman, you're figuring it out, but when the lights come on and you really feel comfortable, then we can assess how good you really are. Right now, you're stumbling and you're fumbling. You haven't learned how to walk or talk. So, once we get you to where you're feeling good and that light's on and you know what to do, I think that's when Kory's going to make a difference.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for coming on, Coach. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple things. So Coach Samuel's son, Draven, just made a commitment to play D2 football. That has to be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Very proud of him. And also Brooklyn, Coach Samuel's daughter worked for the Michigan State basketball program, and so she's a senior this year, graduating. And the senior night was able to kiss yes and have that moment. So that was really cool. And and unfortunately, you weren't able to come out for that. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand when about coaches, because it seems glamorous to those that are, they love sports, but you have to work so much and you have to give up a lot and miss a lot with your family, and you do a great job balancing it. And you have an amazing family, and I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time, and I hope you enjoy your time down in the warm weather.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do appreciate you, Dave, and everything you've done for our family, too, as well. I mean, it's, we've known each other a long time, and it's been great to see our families grow. And I will say this. I mean, I'm rooting for Sparty this weekend, today against, I guess, who they're playing. It's because
North
Dakota State,
right? Yeah.
North Dakota. Oh, and of course, I coached at North Dakota State, so way back in the day before Michigan State. So I'm still going for Sparty. I'm going for Brooklyn. I'm going for Coach Izzo. I need them to go ahead and get that done so Brooklyn can enjoy her time in March Madness. So that's be fun.
Do you have MSU winning your bracket, Coach?
No, I got Purdue.
Oh.
Well, you played at Purdue.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I mean, and I'm always going to be about, hey, Kansas. I want Kansas to win. But when you start talking March Madness, I should be able to just enjoy, my alma mater too, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
100%. Well,
Even say Brooklyn does give me a lot of crap because anytime we play Purdue and Michigan State, so there's a lot of jaw jacking going on.
Love it.
Well, and I know Brooklyn's talking to some NFL teams. I think I can say that, and hopefully we'll have some exciting news there soon.
All right, yeah, I do hope so too. But like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been amazing, and like I said, hopefully I didn't embarrass my family.
Hey, well, Coach, good luck.
Coach.
In the upcoming season, we'll be obviously excited to follow that, and we'd like to have you back again at some point.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Coach.